Welcome back to the Real Intelligence Podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Swim, and I'm so glad you're here. How many of you have ever been to an amusement park or a museum or some location where you have a map of the surroundings and you have to navigate from where you are to the ride you want to go on or to that piece of art that you would like to see? You find the little dot on the map that says you are here, and then you follow along, right, to get to your destination. When you know where you're going, when you're oriented to that place, you feel confident. You feel peaceful, right? You usually feel really clear. You know how to move forward. You know you're going to get there. You're not concerned. You can enjoy the surroundings. You can enjoy your outcomes. When you feel disoriented or you can't quite figure out what is up and down on this map, right? Or maybe some of the landmarks aren't accurate on this little map that you've been given. You feel lost. You feel confused. You feel unsure. You're trying to look for help. You don't know what to do. You're kind of feeling stuck. Orienting is this process of making sense of where we are in relation to the things around us. This is a natural instinct we all have, this orienting reflex. And it allows us to stay safe in the world and also to experience new things, to have curiosity. But while it's an instinct for us, sometimes we don't pause long enough to recognize where we really are, to take full advantage of this tendency we have, this instinct we have to orient to the world. And we leave orienting at this surface level. As long as I'm safe, I'm fine. Today, we're going to talk about how we might really deepen our skill of orienting and why we might want to use it more frequently to help us stay aligned with ourselves, to be more strategic in our lives, and to calm and regulate our nervous system so we build a little more capacity as we go through life. So let's start out with what is orienting. Just to define it, orienting is simply knowing where you are physically, mentally, emotionally, relationally. It's a noticing. Orienting is a reflex that allows us to protect ourselves and to be curious about the world around us. So when our five senses detect something unexpected, we have this involuntary shift of attention toward that new thing that allows us to determine, is that safe? Should I move toward that thing? Should I move away from that thing? Can I ignore that thing? If you've ever been around a little child and watched them experience something new for the first time, you've probably seen this orienting reflex in action. When I was a little girl, I remember being in a grocery store with my mom, and I saw someone who was missing a finger, and that was really new for me. I had never experienced that before. And I was staring at this person's hand. And my mom tried to quietly whisper to me, Jenny, don't stare. It's rude to stare. And of course, I didn't know that social grace at the time, but this was something I couldn't help. It was this orienting reflex that I had to really check this out. I hadn't seen this before. I didn't know what to do with this. I didn't know how to engage with this. And so if you notice that within yourself, that disorientation, that moment where I'm not sure, do I go forward? Do I go back? Maybe giving some grace for yourself and recognizing this is a normal part of how we orient to our next step, how we orient to our environment in a way that helps us stay safe. This is just instinctive. So if you're not moving forward on your path, if you don't know what your next step is, or if you're feeling like you're really coming inward and being maybe more restful and not moving forward, perhaps that's an indication that orientation might serve you. Practicing this orienting skill might be helpful. So let's talk about 3 reasons why orienting might be especially helpful. And then, of course, what we can do to be in the practice of orienting, because remember, we already have this instinct, but oftentimes we just leave it at that physical level where I orient to, oh, that loud sound. Oh, that was a tree falling in my neighbor's yard. Or, oh, that's my dishwasher going, that other sound. Oftentimes we can leave orienting at that physical level where we're just identifying, am I safe? Am I not safe physically? Let's talk about these 3 reasons. And again, this is not an exhaustive list of why orienting can be beneficial. This is just from my experience and from those that I've seen. These are some patterns I've experienced. Maybe you will notice different ones. I invite you to pay attention to those as always, to listen to what your own internal wisdom has to share with you today. So one of the first ways that orienting can really be helpful is it allows us to differentiate. And that simply means I am different from you. I am separate from this computer. I am a few feet away from this wall or from this plant behind me. I'm able to differentiate myself and see where I end and where others begin. And this can be especially helpful if I tend to notice my boundaries creep, right? Maybe I'm a parent and I'm over owning or I'm over responsive to a struggle my child's having, or in my organization, perhaps some of those team dynamics that are happening there, I almost mesh with that, become one with those team dynamics instead of allowing myself to be part of the team, but to not own those team dynamics or become one with those team dynamics. It allows us to have a little bit of space so we can stay in our home orientation. This means we still take appropriate responsibility, but we clarify what is mine to hold and what isn't mine to hold. And this is really great because it can help us avoid unnecessary stress or over functioning or absorbing others' problems, and instead showing up in that place of genuine care and empathy and not in rescuing. One way we can orient here is before we engage with other people, with problems, with challenges that might be in our life, taking a pause to recognize where we are. And this could be as simple as literally touching yourself, touching your hand, your arm, your head, and then touching something that is not you, right? So I have my desk below me. I can say, I am Jenny, and this is my desk. And I'm recognizing these are 2 separate things. Now you might think that seems like the simplest thing I've ever seen, but it actually has a very calming and grounding effect. And it also helps us as we are, again, relating with other people. Even if someone's not in the room, I can prepare myself by orienting, I'm Jenny, and that is my child, or that is my boss, or that is my coworker, and noticing there is a separation of space between me and them. I am over here, they are over there. This allows me in how I'm moving forward in life to maintain that healthy separation. So we can partner together, but we're not getting into some enmeshment and codependency and some other things there. We're staying as separate people. Okay, so a second reason we might want to use orienting is that it provides a strategic reality check. So we've talked about before on the podcast that our brains are so efficient and they love to jump into autopilot, right? Our brains are like, hey, I think I know what this is. You don't need to put in any more work. I'm just going to take you forward on this path. But sometimes that's not the path we want to go down, and we've missed a few steps, just like we talked about in our last episode on observation. Now, while we appreciate that gift of our brain, sometimes we need to pause and just recognize, what am I really orienting to? Is this the direction I want to go? If I'm looking at that map and I am here, this dot on the map, where do I need to go to get to the thing that's meaningful to me, or to avoid a concern, or to put myself in a position to be most aligned with my values and with my own integrity? When I pause to say, where am I right now? It gives me the chance to cut through self-deception. We're really good at self-deception. And it helps me cut through some of my stories or some of my assumptions that I might have, because I really get to pause and say, here, this is where I am. Maybe I've said or articulated that this value is important to me, but I'm noticing that I am actually moving farther away from that, or I've sidestepped the path to get to that. And it gives me this really honest checkpoint to say, where am I in relation to that outcome? So I might ask a question like, what am I orienting to? What's affecting my choices? What's driving my decisions? Am I living to stay safe? Am I living to receive praise or validation from others? It gives us this really important moment to check in with what is actually present. Who am I being? Not just what am I doing? Where am I in relation to what matters to me? Now, this strategic reality check, this orienting check we can take, if this feels like something that would be helpful for you, this may be something to do with a journal where you can ask yourself those questions. Where am I in relation to this value or this goal? What has power or authority in my life? What power am I orienting toward? Is it the power of peer pressure? Is it the power of being enough? What is that thing that is maybe having that sway in my life? Am I living in alignment with my value, or am I living in alignment with this pressure, this power, this authority? I'm using those words, but maybe there's a better word for you that has more resonance for you. And just taking a few minutes to ask yourself these questions, maybe partner up with a friend and ask each other these questions as a way to process it out and just see, where are you in this moment? How are you oriented? Maybe you think you're going in one direction and really you're turned to a completely different direction. Instead of having a judgment on that, maybe you could ask why. What is it about this direction that's pulling me that way? Is there something I need to look at? Right. Then it opens up a lot of curiosity and maybe some deeper dives that could be helpful. But again, this strategic orientation, this pausing to strategically orient, allows us then to get our bearings, to reconnect with where we are, and then, of course, to move forward in that way that we can feel more momentum, more confidence, to be found, if you will, to know that I am not lost. I know where I'm going, and to reorient to what is important to you. This really gets us beyond that just physical orientation, right? Now we're emotionally, spiritually, mentally orienting. And the third reason we might want to consider orienting is that it can calm our nervous system. And anytime we do any work on our nervous system, we are working on our capacity. So if you're wanting to build capacity in any way, starting with your nervous system is always a win. Let me ask you this, in fact, right now. What are you doing right now? Just notice. Are you walking? Are you driving? Are you exercising? What are you doing right now? Now maybe notice what's under your feet. Is it grass? Is it dirt? Is it hardwood? Is it carpet? What's under your feet? What do I hear right now? What do I smell? Can I smell something? What can I see? What is in the sight of my horizon? When we name concrete facts, we calm and ground our body and mind. And this comes from the principle or the practice, name it to tame it, that we really do calm our nervous system as we name these concrete facts. This engages the part of our brain that helps us to calm that fight or flight response. So how might we do this? We can simply ask ourselves the question, what am I doing right now? And then notice what our five senses are picking up. It's a great way to calm the nervous system. If you're feeling stressed or a strong emotion, or you're noticing maybe that disorienting feeling present, to just notice, what am I smelling? What am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I tasting? What am I touching? Can be a really quick way to start to ground your nervous system and then give you a little more capacity to orient in all of the other ways that allow you to know, should I move forward? Should I move back? Should I ignore this moment? Whatever needs to happen in order for you to move forward on your real intelligence journey. Okay, so maybe you're thinking, this is important to me. I want to do this. How am I doing right now? Am I over orienting? Am I under orienting? Here's just a couple questions I'm going to offer to see, where might you be right now? This is an orienting practice in and of itself. So where am I in relation to orienting? This is not conclusive or diagnostic. This is just inviting some reflection. So here's question number 1. Do I miss important cues or context until after the moment has passed? How would you answer that? Number 2, am I constantly monitoring what's happening around me? Am I really attuned to all the little things that are happening? Number 3, do I feel disconnected from my body or the present moment? Number 4, am I taking responsibility for things that aren't actually mine? Number 5, does awareness of a situation make me freeze or overthink? Do I find myself not knowing how to move forward? Okay, so if you answered yes to number 1, do I miss important cues or context until after the moment has passed? Or number 3, do I feel disconnected from my body or the present moment? Then you might be under orienting. You might be a little more disconnected from where you are. If you answered yes to number 2, am I constantly monitoring what's happening around me? Number 4, am I taking responsibility for things that aren't mine? And number 5, am I having a hard time taking a step forward? I'm freezing or I'm overthinking. You might be on the other end of over-orienting, where you're so heightened to everything that's happening outside of you, to the environment, that you're not actually centered in your home base. So both extremes have the same solutions, right? Orienting allows us to come back to home. It allows us to know where I am personally in relation to the people around me, to the ideas around me, to the environment around me, to recognize the safety signals and cues around me, to recognize what is new or different while still maintaining my home base. We can use the same techniques on either end of that, which we've talked about today. Number 1, orienting to recognize where you end and others begin. Other people, other things, other situations. Pausing to recognize the gap space or the distance between you and those other things. Number 2, we can use the tool of journaling, where you're recognizing, asking yourselves questions like, what's affecting my choices? What is holding power over me? What am I orienting to? Where am I in relation to my values, or living from that place of integrity within myself? Or where am I in relation to the goals or intentions I have for myself? And number 3, using your 5 senses to pause and just to notice, what am I doing right now? And what are those 5 senses picking up? There are lots of ways that we can orient, but most of them have some element of just pausing to be mindful, to recognize yourself in relation to the things around you. As we orient, we tend to find more clarity, more momentum, less reactivity, more capacity, and more alignment with what matters to us. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you found this episode helpful, I'd invite you to pass it along to someone else who might find similar benefit. Until we meet again.